Hello and welcome to our webinar to help you get familiar with drinking water applications. My name is Adam and I'm your host today. We'll be walking you through the entire application process under the Drinking Water Directive with a focus on what information is required at each stage. We'll also be outlining the key dates and timelines for those applications so that you know what to expect and when to plan for each step. We'll also talk about the range of resources and support that we provide to help make this application process as smooth as possible. Lastly, there's also a Q&A session where our experts will answer any specific questions you have, so don't hesitate to ask. You can send your questions throughout the event by going to slido.com and using the event code DWD2024 or with the QR code visible on this slide. Your questions will be answered during the live Q&A. Now you can also upvote questions, and I recommend using this feature so that we cover those questions that are most important for you. If you want to address a specific speaker, add their name to your question. Now we can only cover topics within the scope of the webinar, but if you do have questions that are not directly related, you can send those to us using our contact form at echa.europa.eu/contact. A Q&A document with answers to all the questions will also be published after the event. So if your question is not answered by the time we close, you'll find your answer in the published Q&A. The presentations for today are already available on our website, and the recording will be there soon after the event. So here's the program. We have a packed agenda and several experts from ECHA joining us to share their knowledge and answer your questions. Panos Zarogiannis will start by outlining the objectives of the Drinking Water Directive and give an overview of the European positive list. Panos will explain the broader goals of the directive and how the positive list plays a role in ensuring safe drinking water across Europe. Next, Clara Rueda will cover the process for making changes to the positive list, and she will be detailing the steps involved in reviewing, adding, or removing an entry, helping us understand the criteria and procedures ECHA follows for maintaining the list. Following this part, Clara will continue with an overview of the timelines associated with the application process. This segment will give you a clear understanding of the key dates and deadlines to keep in mind. Then, we'll be hearing from Nico Hellsten, who will break down the specific content of a notification of intention and a formal application under the Drinking Water Directive. Nico will explain what applicants need to include at each stage to meet the directive's requirements. Our next speaker, Dorota Burchard-Sosnowska, will introduce the EUCLID format for these applications. She will cover how to prepare and submit the required information in EUCLID to ensure compatibility with our systems. After that, Panos will return to discuss how ECHA supports applicants throughout the application process. He'll outline the resources and assistance available to help you navigate each step smoothly. Finally, I'll be back to conclude our session with key takeaways from today's presentations. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you find today's webinar informative and helpful. Over to you, Panos.
Hello, and a warm welcome from my side to all those who have joined us today. My name is Panos Zarogiannis, and I'm the leader of ECHA's Drinking Water Directive business team. I will take you through an introduction to the Drinking Water Directive, and in particular its Article 11, which is the focus of ECHA's new tasks. I will also explain the role of the new European positive list. Let's take a look at the Drinking Water Directive and its objectives. What we call the Drinking Water Directive is the EU's main law on drinking water, and is a recast, or if you wish, a revision of the 1998 version of the directive. The EU adopted the recast Drinking Water Directive in December 2020, and the directive entered into force in January 2021. Member states had to transpose the directive into national law and comply with its provisions by the 12th of January 2023. The Drinking Water Directive concerns the access to and the quality of water intended for human consumption to protect human health. The directive also includes an obligation for EU countries to improve access to safe drinking water for all, in particular for vulnerable and marginalized groups. The recast Drinking Water Directive will further protect human health thanks to updated water quality standards and by tackling pollutants of concern, such as endocrine disruptors and microplastics. The focus of ECHA's tasks under the Drinking Water Directive is on Article 11, which sets out minimum hygiene requirements for materials that come into contact with drinking water. Such minimum requirements will include, where appropriate, migration limit values and appropriate conditions of use to ensure the protection of consumer health. In addition, Article 11 aims at the harmonization of protection measures across the European Union. The evaluation of the previous version of the Drinking Water Directive had found that the provisions of that directive provided too much legal flexibility, leading to different national approval systems across the Union for materials that come into contact with drinking water. Article 11 covers both the substances that are used to manufacture contact materials, but also the certification of products placed on the market. For ECHA, the focus is on the substances, and from this angle, the objectives of Article 11 are meant to be achieved through the adoption of three new elements. First, a European positive list of substances and compositions is to be established. Second, procedures for updating the European positive list should be set up together with an application process. And finally, risk assessment methodologies and information requirements for such applications under Article 11 must be adopted. All three elements are now in place through the adoption of secondary legislation by the European Commission on the 23rd of April 2024. Now, let's take a closer look at the first European positive list. What we call the first European positive list is actually a set of lists of starting substances, compositions, and constituents which will be authorized for use in the manufacture of drinking water contact materials. This list will apply from the 31st of December 2026 to materials and products intended to be used in new installations for the abstraction, treatment, storage, or distribution of water, or for repair works, including supply pipes, valves, pumps, water meters, fittings, and taps. You may see the official list in Commission Implementing Decision 2024/367, the link to which is provided on this slide, but is also available on ECHA's website. Collectively, over 2,000 entries are currently listed, organized in 4 annexes. Annex 1, the longest annex, presents the approved starting substances for organic materials. Annex 2 presents the approved compositions for metallic materials. Annex 3 presents the approved organic constituents of cementitious materials. Note that inorganic constituents can be used without a requirement for their presence on a positive list. And finally, Annex 4, the shortest list, presents the approved compositions of enamels, ceramic, and other inorganic materials. It should be noted that Article 3 of the Commission decision shown on the screen does include certain transitional provisions, which you are encouraged to review. On this slide, you can see a screenshot of a part of the positive list of starting substances for organic materials. In this example, we can see entries 28, 29, and 30, numbered on the left-hand side, their names and approval conditions, and their expiry dates on the right-hand side of the table. More generally, and while noting that the different lists do have some structural differences, the European positive list aims to display a unique 4-digit number that identifies each entry. This is called the EUPL number, the name of the entry that identifies its chemical identity, the combination of approval conditions, for example, whether a starting substance is approved for use in plastics, in rubber, silicones, etc., and the technical function for which approval has been granted, for example, use as a monomer or as an additive. Any applicable migration limit values, not only for the listed substance itself, but where appropriate for other chemical substances which may migrate into the water when the starting substance is being used. Later in this webinar, we will touch upon this new concept of relevant chemical species. A positive list entry may be accompanied by conditions of use, such as limitations on the types of approved materials, concentration limits, purity conditions, etc. And finally, each entry is accompanied by an expiry date. The expiry date is very important, as it shows the date by which an entry in the positive list must be reviewed. The first review of the European positive list is required to be completed 15 years after its adoption, that means by April 2039. Each entry in the first European positive list has one of four possible expiry dates: 31st of December 2028, or 2031, or 2034, or 2037. These expiry dates have been assigned on the basis of the available information on the hazards of the different substances. Generally speaking, very hazardous substances or substances which lack information are meant to be reviewed earlier. An important point must be made here. If an economic operator submits a review application for an entry on the positive list at least 18 months before its expiry date, that entry may remain valid beyond its expiry date until the European Commission decides on keeping the substance on the positive list. In other words, there may be benefits from submitting a review application early in case the decision-making process becomes too long. Thank you for your attention.
Hello everyone, my name is Clara Rueda and I'm the DVD Solution Manager. I'm the bridge between business and IT. Today, I will guide you through three main areas. The first one could be the DVD processes that ECHA is implemented to update the European positive list of starting substances, compositions, and constituents that can be used in manufacturing products that will be in contact with drinking water. We will also check who are the actors, the applicants that can trigger these processes. And finally, I will share with you the main timelines that you should consider. Let's start with the legal background. The processes that are needed to trigger the update of the European positive list are described in the Commission Delegated Regulation that you can see in the screen. Each of these processes will include a scientific opinion prepared by the ECHA's Risk Assessment Committee. The main step of these processes are first, the notification of intention to apply. Second, the submit application that collects the full data that needs to be considered and the assessment of that data. And finally, in the case of an update of the European positive list that aims to include a new entry or review of an existing entry, that is the need to provide a physical sample to the European Commission within 2 months after the Risk Assessment Committee in ECHA has provided their opinion. Who can trigger these processes? The applicants could be European economic operators, and here in the slide you can see some examples: manufacturer, importers or distributors of the substance, users of the substance, or importers, manufacturers and distributors or users of the material or the product. Of course, also these processes can be triggered by someone acting on behalf of a group of economic operators. EU-based representatives of non-EU operators can also trigger these processes, and also national authorities. Although the legal text does not include any obligation to jointly submit an application for the same substance, and that there is no provisions for data sharing, there is a strong encouragement to collaborate among economic operators. The DVD applications that aims to update the European positive list can be divided in 3 types. The first one aims to include a new substance, a starting substance, composition or constituent in the list. Please be aware that new entries cannot be requested for a group of substances. That's not allowed. The second type of application could be have the aim to review an existing entry. Please note that if the review of existing entries that are for group of substance will not be continue an entry for a group of substance, but will end up in independent entries for each single substance. Finally, there is a third option, a third type of DVD application, which aim to remove an existing entry. The two business processes that we implemented in ECHA are the notification of intention to apply and the apply to approve or remove the European Positive List entry. The first one, notification intention to apply, aims to ensure that all interested parties are aware of the intentions of other applicants to update the European Positive List. The idea here is that all interested parties are aware of other intentions so they can work together to prepare the DVD application, or that they can follow closely processes that can impact their interests. The second process, the process to the application to approve or remove an existing entry, is a process where the applicant needs to collect sufficient information on the substance to be able to demonstrate the risk from the use of that substance is acceptable. During this process, the applicant will prepare this data. ECHA will check that this data follows, it's complete and follows the information requirements defined in the legal text. Then there would be a step to consult other interested parties in this process. And with the data that is provided from the applicant and the data that is collected during this consultation step, the Risk Assessment Committee will assess this data and will produce an opinion. Finally, the Commission will adopt the final decision about the approval of that request to update the European Positive List entry. Now I'm going to show you how this what are the solutions that we are implemented for these business processes. The first one is the notification intention to apply. So here the applicant should first prepare the data. The data needs to be prepared following a harmonized format that we have in ECHA that is widely used for collecting information regarding chemicals, which is EUCLID. They can prepare the data offline in their computers on their system using the EUCLID offline, or they can use EUCLID cloud, the service that we provide, EUCLID Cloud, to prepare this data. During this step of preparation of the data, we are also preparing some validation rules to help the preparation of the data to ensure that the mandatory information is included in the dossier. Once the dossier, all the data is prepared, the applicant needs to provide it to us via our submission tools. And during the submission process, there would also be a validation to check that all the mandatory information has been included. After this, once this submission step has succeeded, this will trigger a set of tasks in ECHA, automatic tasks in ECHA, to publish this data, ensuring that there is no confidential or sensitive data on it. And we will publish all this data to allow, as we said before, other interested parties to know what are the intentions of the others. The second solution that we are implemented is related with the application to approve or remove the European Positive List entry. In this case, the data that is needed is much bigger, as you can understand. This needs to be collected using the EUCLID format, again, and also the same submission tools that are used for the for provision the notification of intention to ECHA. Once the data is submitted, ECHA will check that the data is under the scope of the process, and also it will check that the data provided is accordingly to the information requirements that has been set on the legal text. If during this accordance check some areas are missing or are not found in accordance, ECHA will inform the applicant about it, and the applicant will have one more attempt to provide a new dossier to resolve the issues or the gaps that were identified. Once the accordance check step has passed, the dossier that has been received will be published, again making sure that the confidential information is not published, and a third-party consultation will be triggered. During 1 month, interested parties will have the option to provide input for the process. With this input collected during the consultation and the information provided in the dossier, the Risk Assessment Committee will start to do their work to assess the risk of the use of that substance. During this assessment, potentially the RAC, the Risk Assessment Committee, may decide to ask further clarifications to the applicant. Once the first scientific opinion is created, this will be shared with the applicant also, just in case to know if they have comments related with it. The final opinion will be agreed among all the scientists included that are part of the Risk Assessment Committee, and this opinion will be provided later on to Commission to take the final decision and then to update the European positive list. During this process, we will make sure that we publish the data so all the interested party can transparently follow the process. Finally, I would like to share with you some important timelines that should be considered. Now I would like to share with you what are the main timelines that you should consider. The first one is the European positive list that has been published this year will apply from end of 2026. Then regarding the business process that I have described before, the end of 2025 marks the beginning of the notification of intention. End of 2026 marks the beginning of the DVD application process. Please remember that the applications must be submitted within 12 months from the notification of intention. And ECHA recommends that notify as early as possible, and that the time between the notification and the application is as close as possible to 12 months. Finally, I would like to share with you here an overview of the main timelines related with the DVD. The first two in green on the left are the ones that I have just mentioned, when the notification of intention and the DVA application can start. And in blue, you can see what are the windows that has been included, the expiry date that has been included in the current European positive list, aiming to review the full list in 15 years. I would like to also highlight that a list entry may remain valid beyond its expiry date if a review application has been submitted to ECHA at least 18 months before the expiry date of that entry. With this, I finalize my presentation, and I want to thank you.
Hello, my name is Nico Helsten, and I work in ECHA's Drinking Water Directive team. I will explain about the necessary contents required when submitting Drinking Water Directive notification of intention or application. First, let's talk about the requirements for the notification of intention. The notification of intention has the purpose of notifying ECHA of your intention to submit an application, but also to give a chance for other actors interested in the same substance or composition so that you may potentially work together. Contents of the notification are not described in the legal text. However, the requirements are simple and found in ECHA Guidance Volume 4. The necessary information for the notification are: who is a notifier, applicant or their representative? What is being notified, a substance or a composition? What kind of application will be submitted after notification? Review of existing entry, addition of a new entry, or removal of an entry? What are the intended uses that will be applied for? And lastly, when is application expected to be submitted? And that's it. Submitting a notification of intention is designed to be quick and easy. It should be possible to fill in the required information and submit within minutes. Next, let's talk about the requirements for the DWD applications. The high-level requirements and details on contents of Drinking Water Directive applications can be found in the implementing legislation. The required information is divided into different sections, and it will be used by ECHA and the Risk Assessment Committee to assess the application. In the next slides, I will explain in more detail what those sections are and what content is required. First, whatever is applied for needs to be properly identified. For each application, the applied for entry needs to be identified by giving its name, EC or CAS number, and/or other relevant names such as standardized alloy notations for the metallics. Also, molecular structure, identities, and concentrations of constituents and impurities need to be given along with analytical data to support the identification. In case the application concerns nanoforms, polymers, or prepolymers, there are some additional requirements. Secondly, the intended use of the applied for entry needs to be described in sufficient detail. This includes identifying the material and product where the applied for entry will be used, as well as the relevant conversion factor or product group to estimate the risk from the use of the applied for entry. In addition, the technical function, processing, and structure of the material need to be described, as well as reactions during processing or use which could lead to the generation of additional non-intentionally added substances, NIAS. Finally, any relevant past assessments and/or approvals can be given. Thirdly, certain relevant physicochemical properties of the applied for entry need to be given. All required properties can be found in the legal text and ECHA guidance, and they include, for example, melting point, boiling point, and density, to name a few. There are fewer requirements of physicochemical properties for metallic and inorganic compositions, as well as for the non-intentionally added substances, NIAS. The fourth section of information concerns migration. As migration describes how much substances are transported from the contact material into water, the information on migration is very important. In some cases, it is possible to use modeling for the starting substances used in organic materials, or a scientific justification without testing the scientific dossier for metallic materials to estimate migration. However, mostly physical migration testing should be used whenever possible. Migration testing should be conducted following standard methods as specified in the legal texts. The information submitted to ECHA should include what is specified in the standards. It is very important that based on the migration information, it is possible to determine the concentration at the tap, the C-tap. Depending on the testing standard, this can be accomplished by different procedures and, for example, in the case of starting substances for organic material, include calculation of migration rate and use of a product-specific conversion factor. For entries requiring toxicological information, a migration tier must be established based on the level of migration. This will then be used to determine the level of toxicological information needed. In addition, based on migration information, a list of relevant chemical species must be generated. These are substances that migrate so much that their level of concern must be evaluated. In the Drinking Water Directive application, toxicological information is also required. The amount of toxicological information required depends on the level of migration, so that a higher migration results in more information required. The aim is that for each relevant chemical species, as determined in migration, maximum tolerable concentration or MTC TAP value can be set using toxicological information. There are certain cases where no toxicological information is required, as explained in ECHA guidance. This can happen, for example, when a substance already has a limit value set in the Drinking Water Directive Annex 1. The final point in the contents of an application is the risk acceptance. In the risk acceptance, the calculated concentration at the tap, the C-tap, is compared against the maximum tolerable concentration at the tap, the MTC tap, for each relevant chemical species. The C-tap must be lower than the MTC tap for the use of a substance to be safe. For well-known, extremely hazardous substances, for example those classified as CMR Category 1, there are additional strict requirements, and the use of this kind of substances should be avoided. Specifically for metallics, in addition of C-tap being lower than MTC tap, there must be a decreasing trend in the migration test results. This means that the migrated concentrations should decrease as the testing time increases. This ensures that a metallic material stays safe during its service life and is required because metallic compositions are accepted on the European positive lists as materials. I have now explained the contents of the notification of intention and the application, and I thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Dorota Burchardt-Sosnowska from the ECHA team at ECHA. I will explain today in which format the data for Drinking Water Directive will be collected. The software to be used is called EUCLID, which stands for International Uniform Chemical Information Database. EUCLID is used to record, store, maintain, and exchange data on chemical substances. This is a software used for several legislations, for example, in the European Union for REACH, for the Classification, Labeling and Packaging Regulation, the Biocidal Products Regulation, and the Plant Protection Products Regulation. It is also used outside of Europe, for example, in the United States, New Zealand, and Australia. The way the data is reported in EUCLID is harmonized between legislation whenever it is possible, so common studies are reported in the same way across legislations. The format is agreed at the OECD level. When we are introducing a new legislation to EUCLID, we reuse documents that already are available in EUCLID as much as possible. This harmonization, standard exchange format, clear structure with predefined fields, and reusable entities makes data usage easier. EUCLID will be used at the first step to prepare notification of intentions and applications. Both can be stored in the same EUCLID database, so if an applicant starts by preparing the notification of intentions, this data can be used later on when preparing the application. the identity of an applied for entry must be always the same as the one notified. An application can contain data on the relevant chemical species, organized in a way that each relevant chemical species has its own set of data. Applicants will use both harmonized formats and specific Drinking Water Directive formats. For example, harmonized formats are used for physicochemical properties or toxicological information. Formats developed for the Drinking Water Directive include, for example, data on migration of the substance, intended use of the entry, and risk acceptance. Several milestones have been reached so far in the preparatory work on the EUCLID format. Last year, in May 2023, we published the first version of the Drinking Water Directive EUCLID format. Then, in April 2024, a minimum viable product. For those who are not familiar with this IT term, a minimum viable product is a version of product that has enough core features to be usable by customers and allowing feedback to be collected. Currently, we are preparing the next EUCLID release planned for April 2025, which will be used for the first Drinking Water Directive notification. Similarly, the EUCLID version released in April 2026 will be used for first Drinking Water Directive applications. Between each EUCLID major release, we collect feedback and implement improvements to the format. Let's have a look at the EUCLID structure for a Drinking Water Directive application. On the left side, we see the table of contents where all the sections of information are displayed. The format relevant to each section is displayed on the right side. Here we see an example of an intended use of the applied for entry for a metallic material. Each material has its own set of predefined fields. Here the fields contains test data. Here you can see another example of the format, also Drinking Water Directive application. This is a special section where the information on relevant chemical species is stored. You can access the list of relevant chemical species from the main table of contents. From there, all the specific studies available for the selected relevant chemical species are provided in a second-level table of contents. You can see it on the right part of the screen here. In this second-level table of contents, only the relevant types of studies are displayed. For example, for physical and chemical properties, only water solubility and partition coefficients are displayed, compared to the 17 types of physical and chemical property studies required for the Drinking Water Directive application in the main table of contents. This is all from me. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, my name is Panos Zarogiannis and I'm with you again to conclude the main part of this presentation by explaining what support ECHA will be offering to applicants under the Drinking Water Directive. ECHA has been working for a few years on the development of scientific guidance for Drinking Water Directive applications alongside the development of the secondary legislation. Draft versions of the guidance documents have been commented by ECHA's Committee for Risk Assessment, RAC, and a group of stakeholders who are members of the Drinking Water Directive Guidance User Group. We will touch upon this user group in a moment. ECHA has prepared 4 volumes of guidance. Volume 1 is about how to test a substance or composition for which you wish to apply at ECHA. Volume 2 is about how you can demonstrate that the risk to human health from the use of that substance or composition can be acceptable. Volume 3 explains what falls within or outside the scope of an application to be submitted to ECHA, and also elaborates on the role of representatives for EU-based applicants and non-EU-based applicants. Volume 4 gives guidance on how to prepare a notification of intention. There is an additional guidance document which has been prepared by the Joint Research Centre of the European Commission. This guidance document explains how applicants can meet the obligation to submit physical samples of their substances and compositions after ECHA's Committee of Risk Assessment has issued an opinion. ECHA aims to publish all these 5 documents on its website early in 2025. Some of these documents are also planned to be translated, and the non-English versions will be published at a later stage. Beyond the guidance documents which explain in detail the information requirements for notifications of intention and applications, ECHA will publish some additional supporting materials. Firstly, ECHA will issue a decision which will summarize the appropriate methods for testing for physicochemical properties, migration, and toxicological properties. This is required under Commission Decision 2024/365. Secondly, ECHA plans to issue a EUCLID manual which will help applicants understand how to navigate and fill in the EUCLID formats, and a submission manual which will explain how the EUCLID dossiers are meant to be submitted electronically to ECHA. Finally, ECHA plans to publish in 2025 a searchable version of the European positive list. Furthermore, ECHA will gradually be expanding the content of its Drinking Water Directive pages. You can see the link at the top of the screen. Through this landing page, you can visit the European positive list, currently as a link to the official legal text, and later, as mentioned already, as a searchable database. You can also have access to all other relevant implementing legislation, such as the acts we presented today on the information requirements and the process for submitting Drinking Water Directive applications. And you can also find an area where materials relevant to the Drinking Water Directive IT Tools user group are being published. You can currently find in there copies of slides used in past meetings of that group. So, what are ECHA's user groups? The first user group is the one that has supported the drafting of the guidance documents. It includes experts from industry organizations, the Joint Research Centre, EFSA, and NGOs. Members of the group were given access to draft versions of the guidance documents and provided comments and made suggestions for improvements. This group will go quiet now, as the preparation of the guidance documents has almost been completed. However, guidance documents are meant to be living documents, and if we need to make amendments in the future and issue improved versions, we will be asking that user group to be involved in the new drafting process again. The second user group that continues to be active is the Drinking Water Directive IT Tools user group. This includes representatives of industry and EFSA, and is meant to support ECHA by having access to the IT tools we're developing for testing them and providing feedback we can use in their development. So far, the input of the group has focused on the development of the EUCLID formats for the notification of intention and the application. However, the user group will also be involved in trialing and feeding back on the application portal, which applicants will use to make their submissions to ECHA. Membership of the group gives a good opportunity for early familiarization with the IT systems which applicants will have to use. The IT Tools user group is accepting new members, and anyone interested in learning and testing is encouraged to join it by sending their details to the email address that is shown on the screen. So to conclude, ECHA is committed to helping new applicants in charting this new territory of Drinking Water Directive applications. So do keep an eye out for the guidance documents and other support materials becoming available on our website starting early next year. Also consider joining the Drinking Water Directive IT Tools user group to learn and help us learn from your experiences and feedback. Also anticipate a larger event on the Drinking Water Directive taking place next year, where more interactive engagement with stakeholders will be the aim. In the meantime, if you have any questions on your obligations, please contact our help desk. Please also remember that ECHA is dealing with the approval of substances and compositions on the European positive list. We have no role in the certification of products or their placing on the market. For any questions relating to products, you are advised to contact your national authorities or the European Commission. And I will leave you for now with a few additional links on the slide to help you to get to know more about ECHA's work. Thank you for your attention so far.
And now for some key takeaways from today before we start the live Q&A. At the end of 2026, in general, starting substances, compositions, and constituents for organic, metallic, cementitious, and inorganic materials must be listed on the European positive list. This is a key requirement for compliance under the Drinking Water Directive. To prepare, the process begins with a notification of your intention starting at the end of 2025. After that, you'll submit your full application to ECHA starting at the end of 2026. Notifications of intention and applications will be submitted in the form of EUCLID dossiers and will use new formats designed for this process. To support applicants, guidance and additional support materials will begin rolling out in early 2025. These resources will help you understand each step of the process. It's important for applicants to familiarize yourselves with the new information requirements well in advance to ensure a smooth application process. And finally, applicants will also have an opportunity to participate in the development of IT tools that will be used for this process, allowing for valuable input and early familiarization. Now, it's time to start our live Q&A. So as mentioned before, you can send us questions through Slido using the QR code on this slide, or by going to slido.com and using the event code DWD2024. The live Q&A lasts until 1 Helsinki time, after which we end the webinar. If your question is not answered by the end of the event, we will publish a Q&A with answers soon. Okay, we'll start the live Q&A soon. See you there.
Hello and welcome to today's Q&A session. I am Heidi Rasakari and I will be your moderator today. Our panel is made up of today's presenters plus additional ECHA colleagues Maya, Vesala and Nicholas. Thank you for sending us your questions in advance. We have already received quite a few and we will be replying to those that you have sent in also during the presentations and of course now during this session. We will take the questions in the order that they appear with the most upvoted at the top, so keep upvoting the questions that are most important for you. And just a reminder that all questions received today and that are within the scope of the webinar will be answered in our Q&A document that will be published soon after the event. So if your question is not answered live, don't worry, check the published Q&A document. All right, let's go to the questions. Okay, so the first question here that has been upvoted quite a few times, it reads, how should the industry manage those products which comply with national requirements by the end of 2026, but do not have a certificate of conformity as not existing, requested, or mandatory within the single member states? So, who would like to answer this first question from the panelists?
I can take this one, Heidi. The role of ECHA is limited to maintenance of the European positive list for the starting substances, composition, and constituents. And that role and positive list will apply from the 31st of December 2026. But on the other hand, certification of product will continue to take place at the member state level. Until that day, there is a transitional measure. Until the 31st December 2026, national provisions still continue to apply. And if you need to clarify the situation in specific member states, we would advise you to contact the national authorities. They can guide you on if and how situation change during that transitional period.
Thank you, Nicholas, for that answer. We move on to the second question. From 2027, some member states will recognise national certifications until 2032, while in others, new requirements apply immediately, as certifications are missing or they aren't in the scope of the Drinking Water Directive. Could this market fragmentation be prevented? Do you plan to assist member states in mutually recognising certifications? Panos, maybe this one is for you.
Yes, thank you, Heidi, and thank you for the question. Again, I think also in the video we have presented, we have explained that issues of certificates when it comes to products are issued at the national level, and this is outside the remit of the tasks of ECHA. So questions on those aspects that are mentioned in the question by the participant must be addressed to national authorities or the European Commission.
Thank you for that clarification. The next question, how will the gap... Nope, it's changed, you're upvoting. Okay. Hello, for countries that did not require a certification for drinking water products, such as Sweden, what should we expect to be the situation during the transition period, if any?
I can take this again.
Panos, yes.
And apologies for the repetition of the main point, and it is, I think, a theme with quite a few of the questions we have already received, which are a bit outside the scope of ECHA's task. So again, to repeat, ECHA's role is limited to the maintenance of the European positive list of starting substances, compositions, and constituents, which list applies from the 31st of December 2026. So the certification of products will continue to take place at the member state level. Until the 31st of December of 2026, national provisions continue to apply. And if you need to clarify the situation in specific member states, you are advised to contact the national authorities who can guide you on how the situation will change during this transitional period. Now, interested parties need to be aware of the provisions of Article 11 of Commission Delegate Regulation 2024/370, which regulates the certification of products. Again, this is a regulation that ECHA is not really dealing with. For products which are assessed to be in conformity with national hygiene requirements and for which the national conformity certificate is still valid on the 31st of December 2026, the EU certification system will apply from 31st of December 2032. This again to look into Article 11 of the Regulation 370 of 2024, but the most important point is these questions must be addressed to national authorities.
Thanks again, Panos. Okay, the following question. How will the gap between national materials positive lists and EU positive lists be handled by ECHA, so as not to create an additional burden and harm the applicability of new materials as of 1st of January 2027. I look to the panel. Who would like to take this question?
This as well. Thank you, Heidi. So the first European positive list was compiled from national positive lists that were notified to ECHA in 2021, plus the plastic food contact materials positive list from Regulation 10 of 2011. Now, if any starting substance, composition, or constituent that is used in the manufacture of drinking water contact materials was not listed on those national lists, it may have been omitted from the first European positive list. Now, ECHA does not have an independent role to the modification or expansion of the European positive list after its adoption. The legal acts are clearly acts of the European Commission. Now, if a substance is missing from the European positive list and any economic operator wishes to be able to use the substance, then an application must be submitted to ECHA. And as we have explained in the video, applications will start from late 2036, practically 2027. Now, ECHA's Committee of Risk Assessment will issue a scientific opinion on that application, and thereafter the European Commission will decide whether to add the substance or composition to the list or not. The substance may start being used after the European Commission has issued a positive decision that adds the substance to the European positive list. And I'm using the term substance just for simplicity. I always need to refer to compositions or constituents. Now, according to Article 3 of Commission Implementing Decision 2024/367, starting substances, compositions, and constituents, which are approved by a member state competent authority during the period from 13th of July 2021 to the 31st of December 2026, in accordance with national provisions, may be used in the manufacture of materials or products that come into contact with the water intended for human consumption until 31st of December 2032. Just to summarize this very long sentence, perhaps, Article 3 of Implementing Decision 3667 indicates that if a member state approves nationally a substance or composition or constituent between the 13th of July 2021 to the 31st of December 2026, this can continue being used under those national provisions until the end of 2032.
Thank you. Okay, I see the next question here is also citing certificates. Are there any options for using materials to obtain EU certificates and marking that are elaborated and added to national positive lists between mid-21 and end of 26, and in line with the directive, the Drinking Water Directive provisions, no lead in brass? The materials are chosen to be future-proof but aren't usable due to the EU positive list. Panos,
yes,
is this question for you?
Yes, just to repeat the standard phrase that the certificate issues are not really within the remit of ECHA's tasks. The transitional period between 21 and 26 is meant to allow national provisions to continue, and the EU system will not apply. More importantly, and to be absolutely clear, questions on those aspects must be addressed to the European Commission and to national authorities.
Thank you once again. Okay, do remember to upvote your questions. The next question we have: what will be the effect of withdrawal of a substance from the positive list? Sorry, I forgot to, I'll read that again. What will be the effect of withdrawal of a substance from the positive list on certificates or test reports on products that use this substance? I'm looking to the panelists. Perfect.
Thank you, Heidi. Again, this is a question best addressed to the European Commission. I can provide a response, but again, European Commission is the source of authoritative information on this topic. Our understanding is that the certificates of products will not expire upon the expiration of starting substances that are used to make those products. So there is no an automatic loss of the market for products that depend on the starting substance that stopped being valid on the European positive list. But again, please address this question to the European Commission, who deals with issues of certification of products. Thank you.
Thank you, Panos. So we have a question from the same author as the last question. Why would an economic operator be interested in joining a petition that is notified? They can use the end result without any effort.
I can answer this question.
Yes.
So once there is an entry on the positive list, all industry can use the substance on that positive list within the conditions listed. So the conditions on the entry is not linked to a particular applicant, but all industry can use it. There are still benefits for companies to be involved in the application process. It can be because the applicant might not have all the impurities or bias or interest to all actors in the field. Also, you might have better data you want to use, and you also might not know if the applicants will continue up to the very end to follow the process. It might have a change of strategy or become bankrupt, and then there will be a drop in the application. So there's still quite a lot of interest in joining the application to join a petition.
Thank you, Nicholas. I think, Panos, here is another question for you. In ECHA's opinion, could a self-declaration be made by the manufacturer be regarded as a certificate of conformity?
Yes, we do not have an opinion, obviously. Issues of certificates outside the scope of what ECHA is working on. Self-declarations are not relevant to the maintenance of the European positive list, so please take this question to the European Commission.
Thank you. The following question asks, appointing notifying bodies and publishing the guidance document are expected at the end of 2026, overlapping with the application date of the acts. Could ECHA support these concluded earlier, the end of 2025, so the notifying bodies and the guidance help manufacturers with compliance in due time?
I will take
over to the panel. Thank you.
Sorry to monopolize the responses here. I'm not entirely sure about what guidance is referred to. In the presentation we made in the video, we explained that we are preparing 4 guidance documents, and there is another one from JRC, which we will be publishing alongside our own guidance documents. And these are obviously specific to preparing notifications of intention and applications to be submitted to ECHA. Now, these are planned to be published in early 2025, as we said in the video, and that is around 2 years before the first application can be submitted to ECHA. We are aware of other guidance that is being prepared for notifying bodies for the certification of products, but we are not really actively involved in this. So we do not have any answer to give. I'm not even sure if the timeline that is being presented, the question is what is meant to be, but our guidance documents will be published very early next year.
Thank you for clarifying that, Panos. Following question cites. Membrane products consist of multiple plastics such as housing, potting, membranes, etc. The new positive list will be applicable to all parts except the membrane, Article 12. How is the EU planning to avoid double certification for such complicated systems? Will membrane modules be exempted? Perhaps, Nicholas, this is a question more for you to answer.
Yes, and maybe also more for the Commission, because it may go a bit outside of the role of ECHA and the Drinking Water Directive, because our role is limited to the maintenance of the positive list under Article 11. And all product falling outside of this scope, including under Article 12, falls under the competence of the member states. So if the company has any question on the, Article 12, we're advised to contact the member state level or maybe the Commission to discuss the difference of scope between Article 11 and Article 12 for this product.
Thank you once again. The EU Positive List is a public document and entries can be used by all. To keep an entry on the list, petitions must be made. How will be ensured that the effort for these petitions does not end up at a single economic operator? I look to the panel.
I can take this question again. So indeed, so once a substance, static substance is on the positive list, all industry can use that entry. It is not linked to the applicant. But there are some mechanisms to promote the data and cost sharing among the industry. So there will be the notification of intention, which should be submitted before the application. And if it's submitted sufficiently long in advance, hopefully 12 months before, then all the industry is aware of that potential application and can join the discussion with the notifier. Also, for any data and cost sharing, we recommend referring to the ECHA guidance on this issue that can be helpful for all the industry to share the cost of the application.
Thank you, Nicolas. The next question highlighted, how will the fee be for notifications?
I can take this. There will be no fee paid to ECHA for notifications or for applications.
Thank you for that succinct answer. And I see we're joined by Clara. Welcome.
Thank you.
The following question, how will this link with substances registered as biocides under PT5 drinking water disinfectants? Okay, who would be?
Here I would have a comment because I'm not sure exactly what the person who submitted the question meant by linking the substance with product type 5. Also in the reply with veterinary medicinal products. I could just say at this stage that under the Drinking Water Directive, it's the first implementing act, decision 2024-365, Article 4, only product type 6 under the biocidal product regulation will be allowed for inclusion in the positive list. But for answering the exact question, I will need more details of what the person meant with the linking.
So perhaps sending in a new question to the help desk would be most beneficial at this point. Yes? Okay. The next question. The omission in the EU positive lists of starting substances in enamels, in brackets hafnium, and the absence of migration limits definitions for substances in the positive list entry, de facto results in a withdrawal of products using the enamel. Does ECHA plan to address this, as amending the acts is not expected before 2027? Nicholas, I guess this is a question for you.
Yes, no, I think that panels already gave some answers to a similar question, because here I would advise to contact the Commission, who is better placed to answer these questions, because they go outside of what ECHA will do. So ECHA does not have an independent role in modification of the positive list. The legal act and inclusion of hafnium is really the competence of the Commission. What ECHA does is to set up a system to allow submission of application for modifying positive lists, and that could be an application for adding hafnium. And then ECHA can then process the application, support the risk assessment committee of ECHA in delivering an opinion, and then seeing the Commission. And the Commission itself will go through its own process for decision-making through comitologic process. But this is all the process, the steps that ECHA is involved in. But the question that the person raises will be more easily addressed by the Commission.
Thank you, Nicolas, for the clarification. The following question asks, when do you expect the EU positive list to be updated for the first time? On the 1st of January 2027 or much later?
I will take this, Heidi. It will not be on the 1st of January of 2027. The intention is obviously to review the entire first European positive list within 15 years from its adoption, which is until 2039. As we said in the video, every entry has an expiry date. Some of them have an expiry date of the end of 2028, which is the earliest that has been assigned. At the beginning of 2027, we will be receiving applications, we expect. And then we will start opening them, doing the accordance check, and then passing them on to the risk assessment committee for the committee to issue a scientific opinion. Once this is finished, then we hand over the opinion to the Commission. The Commission, through a comitology process, they need to decide whether they agree to place or keep something on the positive list or remove it, or perhaps not to add it, whatever the case might be. So we are going to be receiving applications at the beginning of 2027. We need to internally process them, pass them to RAG, the Risk Assessment Committee. They will issue an opinion, and then the Commission will decide. How quickly the first these applications will be going through this entire process remains to be seen. I don't want to speculate. It will not be the 1st of January 2027. That is for certain, because this is when we receive applications, which we need to process, issue opinions, and send the opinions to the Commission. So I cannot give a very straightforward answer, but it will not be much later than 2027.
Thank you, Panos. The next question. If no application is made to keep a substance on the positive list, are there transitional periods after the expiry date to continue using that substance?
I will take this one as well. This is a good question, but it's better addressed to the Commission, because it affects primarily the validity of the certification of products that rely on the starting substance. The substance, when it comes to the positive list, it will expire. What happens with the certificates? Please go to the Commission. Our understanding is that they will not expire automatically, but a more considered response will need to come from the Commission.
Thank you. Next question is about impurities. How will standard impurities of listed substances be communicated? It will be essential to perform assessment of purity of substances used to manufacture products.
I will try here as well. I'm not entirely clear why it is essential to perform and what assessment is referred to about the purity of substances. When it comes to the European positive list, there are criteria in the first implementing act, the decision 2024-365, which explain above which concentration thresholds you must report impurities in the application you make to ECHA. Now, if an impurity ends up being a relevant chemical species, it's something that migrates above a certain level, typically above 0.1 microns per liter into the drinking water, then you need to have potentially toxicological information. You need to do the risk acceptance. And at the end, you may end up with a migration limit value, this MTC tab value for an impurity. So in the positive list, the entry could be for substance X. And in the conditions of use, you may have an MTC tab value for that substance X, the starting substance. You may also have MTC tab values for an impurity, two impurities, degradation products. So if that is the question, whether you will be able to identify in the positive list which impurities matter in terms of migration to the water, this will be shown. Other impurities that have been provided for in the application, but perhaps are not relevant chemical species, you may still find them in the published application, because the applications we will be receiving will be published, but there is a requirement as well to remove confidential information from the dossiers we publish on our website. And I can refer you to Article 10, Paragraph 2 of the third Delegate Act, which is actually Commission Delegated Regulation 2024-369, which actually indicates that information on impurity, which is not a relevant chemical species, may be claimed as confidential. So I hope I'm answering the question. It's not very clear, but if the most important point is that if an impurity is a relevant chemical species, will be very clear in the European positive list, because typically an MTC tab value and migration limit value needs to be assigned to it and be respected, obviously, when you go into the certification of products.
Thank you. Next question concerns hazard classes. How will the new hazard classes that aren't legally binding yet be accommodated? Will it be an immediate review for ED, for example?
I can try to answer this one. I assume that the person is referring to the hazard classes under the CP regulation. And indeed, there have been new hazard classes for endocrine disruptors, PBT, VPVB, and PMT, persistent mobile toxic, and very persistent, very mobile. They were adopted in 2023, and they are already effective since that time, but there is a transitional period until, I think, for substances, toward the end of 2026. So by the time the new European positive list kicks in and the new application process kicks in, all these measures and these hazard classes will be fully effective. And the applicant will have then to take it into account. But if they ask whether there will be an immediate review for ED, so far there is only the expiry date that is provided in the positive list. But once the system kicks in, there's still possibility for the Commission or for member states to have an earlier review of entry in the positive list. And this depends entirely on the consideration for member state and the Commission, which we don't know at this stage.
Thank you, Nicolas. If a company has national approvals currently, will these still be valid once the new positive lists apply at the end of 2026? Nicolas, this might be for you as well.
Yes. So the positive list becomes effective at the end of 2026, but it is still a transitional period. So if there is a national certificate granted before that date, it will still be applicable until the end of 2032. And if the person wants the reference, so I go with the legal reference, it's Article 3 of the decision 2024-367, if the person wants to read it.
Thank you very much. The following question asks, as a raw material manufacturer which provides the declaration of listed, non-listed substances, are we obligated to provide the EUPL number to our customer?
I will take this, Heidi. I think the person who asked the question refers to the submission of the formulation details to a certification body for the certification of the product. I hope I'm understanding this question correctly. This is something that may be addressed in the guidance document that is being prepared for the notifying bodies, the notified certification bodies. So we do not have any view ourselves right now. As far as I can refer to the legal text which are relevant to what ECHA's tasks are, there is no obligation to communicate the UPL number. There is no legal obligation. Now, having said that, it could perhaps help to identify what is the UPL number, but there is no clear legal obligation to do that. Again, there may be something coming from the side of the guidance for the certification process, and there may be some requirement which we are not familiar with. So please, if the question is indeed relevant to the formulation assessment that is being done as part of the certification of products, please take this up with the European Commission and the group of people who are working on the development of that guidance document.
Thank you so much, Panos. Moving to the next question now. How does ECHA ensure that product manufacturers obtain ingredients such as PFAS from secret formulations from raw material suppliers? Without this knowledge, products can be banned overnight and an entire industrial sum can be lost. How is the EU prepared for such an eventuality?
I can take this one, Heidi. So ECHA has no competence to intervene in the supply chain and to mandate any communication of information. This is first on the shoulders of the companies. What can be done is for the supply of the raw material to apply directly to ECHA without sharing information to its customers. And in that context, some information can still be kept confidential. It's the information on the manufacturing process, information on impurities that are not relevant chemical species. That, in these cases, the information will not be made publicly available. And that's covered by Article 10 of the Third Delegated Act, so the Regulation 2024-369. If this is not enough to address the concern from the company, I would advise to contact the Commission to see if more action would be needed. This is as much as ECHA can do.
Thank you for the advice, Nicolas, there. The following question asks, what happens if the application is not submitted within 12 months from notification of intention? Maybe Panos. Clara.
Panos, yeah, just to give a bit of relief to Panos. Thank you, Heidi, for the question. So when the notification of intention is submitted to ECHA and it succeeds the submission, ECHA will provide to the applicant an asset number, and this asset number will have a validity of 12 months. This asset number would be a key element that the applicants needs to provide when they are preparing the dossier for the DVD application. So if this notification of intention, after 12 months from the initial submission, this asset number, this notification of intention will expire, so cannot be used anymore. And the applicant, if they be in this situation, they will need to submit a new notification of intention in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. Following on from that, how will it be ensured that notification requirements for notified bodies are the same all over Europe?
I can take this, Heidi. Our I'm a little bit perplexed by the question. I'm not sure what notification requirements means for notified bodies. Notified bodies are relevant to the certification of products. Notification in our context, in the scope of what we're discussing today, is notification of intention to ECHA. So I'm not sure I fully grasp the question, at least when it comes to what ECHA is doing. If this is specifically relevant to the certification of products, again, we are not the right people to provide advice. It is something that needs to be addressed to the European Commission.
Yeah, thank you. Based on the presented timeframes, it seems impossible to use new substances in 2027. Submissions can only be made from 2027. So when can new substances be first used?
I can answer this question, but with a similar reply, because the role of ECHA is limited to the maintenance of the positive list. So once we have an application, including, for example, hafnium, we then process it. But if there is any question on the new substances in 2027, the Commission will be best placed to answer. Anything that comes before 2027, there is still a transitional measure, and the certificate by member states issued before that date will still apply until 2032. But if the question is more related to substances authorized after that or to be placed on the market after that, I will advise to go to the Commission. We can best place to answer that.
Thank you, Nicolas. The following question asks, when we manufacture a substance upstream of the final material, and in brackets, monomer, for example, to manufacture several types of polymers, how can we collect data to submit the DWD application on the final use? Again, in brackets, migration information, relevant chemical species, material type, and so on.
I will take this. The simple, perhaps not so simple to put into action, but the simple answer is you need to be aware of what happens along your supply chain. Clearly, you need to communicate with companies downstream to see how your substance is being used, to understand how it is being used, and what is the interest of downstream users to continue using your substance for specific uses. So if you do not have all the information, which is very logical that if you are very high upstream, you may not have an idea of how it's being used, what is the migration. It is a matter of communicating with the supply chain, collaborating with them to submit an application. And you may also collaborate on who is to be submitting the application. Maybe just to be clear on this, an applicant, it doesn't always need to be the manufacturer, could be a user of the substance as well, could be the user of a material that is used to make the product. So there is a variety of possibilities of who can be the applicant. The important point, of course, is to get the substance on the European positive list. If that means the application is to be done through a collaboration of the manufacturer with some users, and it could be more than one user because some users use it for one material category, another user for another material category, and there is an interest to cover both of them in my example, then there may need to be a collaboration among more than two parties. So in short, you need to understand your supply chain. You need to pull resources and information. As a manufacturer, you may have information on the toxicological properties of the substance. Maybe you know about impurities. Your downstream users will know how the substance is being used, what is how the formulation of the products and materials takes place. So you need to work together.
Sound advice. Thank you, Panos. The following question cites CID EU 2024/367 Article 3, transitional provision, states that nationally approved starting substances compositions, and constituents may be used until the 31st of December 2032. How will it be arranged that all notified bodies have the same information to perform this assessment? I think I look to you, Panos, here to...
Yes, I'm trying to decipher the question a little bit. The Article 3 under this implementing decision 367, which effectively is the decision that shows the European positive list. It's a very long document with all these tables with the positive list. This Article 3 is about transitional provisions for starting substances, compositions, and constituents, which may be approved nationally within this period of between 21 to the end of 26, that can be used according to those national provisions until the end of December 2032. The question itself refers to notified bodies having the same information to perform this assessment. And I'm not sure which assessment is. I assume it's about the certification of products. I don't think I cannot put the two together. The Article 3 is about saying that if you want to continue to prolong the use of certain starting substance, composition, and constituents beyond 2026, this can be done if a member state approves that starting substance, composition, and constituent under their national provisions, and this use may continue until December 32. I'm not sure how exactly it links to the notified bodies and the assessment they have to do, but if Dirk-Jan, who asked the question, could repeat it or retype it, we will take a look, and if we have the time, we can try to answer orally, or we can add it in the Q&A document later on.
Thank you, Panos. Did the Drinking Water Directive completely replace the old national regulation? Nicholas?
Yes. So when it comes to the approval of starting substances, composition, and constituents in the manufacture of contact materials, the national provisions still apply until end of December 2026. It's only after that time that there is harmonization at EU level with the positive list, containing all substances and composition that can then be used after that date. Where there are some exceptions, so for example, they are listed in Annex 5 of the directive, and for example, inorganic constituent of cementitious material, let's say cement, do not have to be on the positive list and can be used after 2026, even if they are not on the positive list. A second exception is still the transitional period. So if there was been a national certificate, national authorization before the end of 2026, then the substance can still be used until the end of 2032. For full reference, it will be Article 3 of the decision 2024-367.
Thank you, Nicholas. Lara, I believe the next question would be best suited to you. It asks, could you please confirm if the lists of notifications will be made public or not? This may influence the possibility for fair cost sharing.
Thank you, Heidi. Definitely. That's the plan, that we are going to publish all notifications of intentions that we receive in our systems. And we will publish them in ECHA, which is the ECHA's news database that has been released in 2024. And now it includes only information related with data that has been submitted by companies related with REACH, but the plan is that we use the same database to make available notifications of intention, so other actors can find themselves and try to merge forces to work together. I would also like to also inform that we are also planning, and I think it's already in the ECHA cloud, the possibility for applicants that are interested on get familiar with the ECHA dossier, and also to be able to create a report to see how the information that they are going to submit in ECHA would be disseminated. So which are the fields that are considered sensitive or confidential, which is something that the applicant should consider. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you. The following question asks, how can we find out which manufacturer also wants to apply for a starting substance so we know with whom we could collaborate with?
Actually, Panos, maybe I can also take it, or you can complement. So the information that we are planning to make available for the notifications of intentions are the dossiers, so the real data that is contained of the dossier. Also, information about the applicant, so the name of the company and the contact details. So other actors could have a way to contact the applicants to get further information. Panos, I don't know if you want to add something.
No, I think that was quite fine. If you want to start now finding out, obviously, who may have an interest, it's really your responsibility to go out there and try to identify who's active in your supply chain, upstream, downstream, whatever your position in the supply chain might be, to start now finding out whether there is an interest for your substance. If you are a user, you clearly need to have some communication with your suppliers to find out if they are going to support this process. If you are the manufacturer, we mentioned, I think, under the previous question, you need to understand, obviously, if your market wants to continue using the substance to make drinking water contact materials and what materials and products we're looking into. You need to identify what information is out there in terms of toxicological data, migration data. So there is obviously the possibility, once we start the notification process, people to notify their interest, and you can then really realize somebody has an interest in the same substance and can go and collaborate with them. But you don't have to wait until then, and that would be my personal advice as well. Don't wait for the notification system to give you all the answers. If you have an interest in a substance because you use it, you rely on it to make products or to form materials that you sell to somebody else to make products, start working now to identify who is going to have an interest in this process. Could be you and other people around you. Maybe somebody else could make a better applicant than you, or whatever. The possibilities are limitless. You just need to find out who has an interest and how you can start collaborating to collect the information. And I will finish by saying that the guidance documents will be issued very soon, but the legal text is already available since April 24th, April this year. You need to open the legal text and see what information is required, particularly the first implementing act, which is this Commission Implementing Decision 2024/365, which shows you what an application needs to contain. So that will give you an idea that, for example, I need to know more about the impurities of my substance. Do I have this information, or do I need to go upstream to collect this information? Please start doing your homework. Don't expect the notification to resolve this problem of communication. It needs to start now.
Wonderful advice, Panos. Thank you for complementing Clara's answer. If I move to the next question now, if the applicant of the notification of the intention can be also the final user of the substance, how the latter can provide all mandatory information or data being not the direct producer.
I will take this because I sort of covered already with my previous answer. You may need indeed data that you don't hold. Please try to communicate with your suppliers to find out who can supply this to you. I think it was mentioned previously by Nicola. We do not have a role to guide people around how they can communicate with each other. Obviously, it's a role that you need to take up yourselves and try to do this communication, because you must know your market much better than what we do. An important point to make is that the information that you are using to make an application, submit the application to ECHA, you need to have the right to use it. And there will be a declaration upon submission that you have the right to use this information. So ensure that you have the right to use the information you need. Communicate with the owners of information if you don't have the information you need. And yeah, hopefully will work out through collaboration. And as I said before, you can decide who needs to be the applicant, but collaboration is what you need to ensure that you have the information you need.
Thank you very much, Panos. The following question asks, what material must be used for migration studies in case of a monomer? Is it a simple polymer based on the monomer, or a copolymer based on the monomer, a formulated copolymer in the final article? I think, Nico, this one is for you. Can you take this question?
Yes, thanks. So, so the material, or the test piece, as it's called in the legislation, for the migration studies in case of a monomer should be the material that is manufactured using that particular monomer and used in the final article. If I understand the question correctly, I guess in this wording it would be the formulated copolymer in the final article. I would add that you should really describe the intended use of your applied for entry as described in the implementing decision 2024/325 Annex 2, the intended use, and whatever you test for migration should contain your applied for entry and be representative of the intended use that you report. In the case of monomers, you should also consider the non-intentionally added species, or the NIAS, as is also stipulated in the legislation. I hope this answers the question.
Thank you, Nico. I think, Nico, this next question might be for you as well. If all the raw materials in my product are within the positive list, is there still any physical tests to be done? In brackets, migration.
Yes, Heidi, thank you. So the short answer is no. If all your raw materials for using a product or material are on the list, you don't need to test anything for now. I would be mindful of the expiry dates, though, to make sure that you renew your entries if you are still planning to use the same starting substances or materials in the future.
Okay, thank you, Nico. Moving on, do you have an estimation of the time frame it would take to reach an outcome for the review of a new substance on the positive list? Panos.
I can take this.
Thank you.
I wish I had a crystal ball, but I cannot give you obviously a specific time period. This is also going to be a new process, and we need to see what we receive. We have not seen any applications yet. To be a little bit more specific, some applications will be quite simple and easy. Some others will be a bit more complicated. In the legal text, there is a provision in the third delegate act, this Commission Delegate Regulation 2024/369, a provision that the drafting of the RAC opinion must take up to 10 months for a single application, or for a joint opinion. So opinion on more than one application will take up to 13 months. This clock starts ticking from the publication of the dossier by ECHA on our website. Once we obviously have received it and opened it, and we have gone through the accordance check. So there is this timeline of 10 months for RAC to draft the opinion. There are some steps before the publication, which is, as you can see in that legal text, the third delegate act, this regulation 369 of 2024. There is the need, obviously, to successfully receive the dossier. Then we have the accordance check. We check whether the necessary information is there for RAC to be able to reach an opinion. There is a possibility to send a letter back to the applicant to explain that during the accordance check we found something which is not in accordance, so they will have a period of time to respond back to us. For the contents of the application will be 6 months. For if something is outside the scope of Article 11, they will have 1 month to come back to us with an updated dossier. So there is some time period there. So you may submit your application, let's say in January, but the accordance check will take some time. And if there is some issue there, it will take some time for you to go back and produce something improved and submit it to us, and that will take some time. So even if this goes, it needs to take some time. If it goes well, it will still take some time. Then we publish the dossier. The consultation process starts for 1 month, for 4 weeks to be more specific, and from that publication we have 10 months for ACT to issue an opinion. In some simple cases, imagine an application where let's say there's no toxicological information because there's only one relevant chemical species and it has already parametric value, or it is it has a classification under certain hazard classes which are explained in the first implementing act. So in some scenarios, this could be a quick task. In some other cases, if you have, let's say, 5, 10, or even more relevant chemical species, I'm sure RAG will try to use as much time that is available to them to be able to reach a solid, a robust scientific opinion. And then, even if we say it's only 10 months for RAG to reach an opinion, then this draft opinion will go to the applicant. The applicant will have up to 30 days to submit any comments. So again, if applicant takes the opportunity to take comments, we need to wait for that. Then we need to address any comments we received. We finalize the opinion, we send it to the commission, and the commission will take a decision at some point. The timing of the commission's work is something we cannot speculate. So you can imagine that it's not going to be a matter of weeks. It will take some time. But I cannot give you a straightforward answer. I cannot tell you that's going to be 5 months, 10 months, 20 months, or whatever. It remains to be seen. And again, to go back to my original point, this is a new process. At the beginning, we need to, obviously, everybody will be learning. The applicants who may not do the perfect job from the beginning, we are going to be obviously learning as well the process. So, yeah, bear with us. I guess that's the bottom line.
Thank you, Panos. The next question asks, regarding transition period, what is the relation between Article 3 in 2024/367 and Article 11 in 2024/370 regarding products made of leaded alloys not yet complying with 5 micrograms migration?
Can take that, and
Thank you,
maybe
Panos.
Nicola can contribute if I stray off the line. I think they're somewhat linked, but they act a little bit independently as well. The transitional provisions under the so-called second implementing act, which is this 367 decision, is to allow member states. The rationale behind this was that we were notified the positive list by member states in 2021, and even days or weeks after that notification process finished, some new substances were approved at the member state level. So certain member states who were continuing this process of approving substances, compositions, constituents, continue to do so while the first European positive list has been frozen in time on what it was on the table in the middle of 2021. So this is the transitional period for that. That implementing decision is to allow member states who continue their own national work to allow these substances that are approved at the national level according to national provisions to continue being used according to those national provisions. EU provisions do not apply for these substances. On the other hand, for the Article 11 of this regulated delegated regulation 370 of 2024. This is about obviously products and certification of products, which means that if a product is illegally on the market at the end of 2026, it can continue being used until the end of 2032. So they are going in parallel, but they address sort of different issues. In the period end of 26 to end of 2032, products require an EU-wide certificate. Looking more at a higher level, what happens in that period? after the end of 2026, clearly, if you want to have an EU-wide certificate of conformity, then you need obviously to follow the European rules. However, as an exception, as a transitional provision, products which had a national conformity certificate valid on the 31st of December 2026, then this EU system does not apply, but the national system continues until the end of 2032. The question is, what are these provisions? Again, it's something you need to address to the relevant member state authorities, because this may differ. There is, I think it has been mentioned before, a need for some harmonization or visibility, but right now, again, certificates, products are outside the scope of what ECHA is doing. So if you have any questions about how these transitional provisions will work in practice, please address them to the European Commission and the relevant member state authorities.
Thank you once again, Panos. The next question is about EUCLID, so perhaps one for Dorota. It asks,
Yes, thank you.
for PhysChem and tox data already submitted in REACH dossiers, why do we need to resubmit these data? Is it possible in EUCLID to link it with our REACH dossiers?
Resubmitting is required to ensure that the Drinking Water Directive dossier will contain all the Drinking Water Directive requirements. However, EUCLID supports reusing data you already used for REACH or for other regulatory requirements. And the same substance datasets can be reused as starting point, and the relevant working context for Drinking Water Directive can be applied. So there is no need to retype data already available in EUCLID. For example, all the physicochemical properties, except melt flow index, are already harmonized, and the same documents are used both for REACH and for Drinking Water Directive.
Thank you very much, Dorota. Moving on from EUCLID, the next question asks, are there enough resources available, both from industry and from ECHA, in particular the RAC committee, to do this very ambitious review? Has an impact assessment been done by the Commission to judge this?
We'll take this, Heidi, thank you. I do not know if the Commission has done an impact assessment. Again, please address them. I think there is a question has been asked whom to address it to. The written Q&A will provide details. There is some contact details that we tend to share with interested parties to go to the right place in the Commission to ask these questions. It is going to be a challenging situation. It is true that ECHA's mandate is expanding with new tasks gradually, and the same thing happens with the Risk Assessment Committee. We are committed to making things work. We have set up a working group for the Drinking Water Directive, which also brings new expertise to support RAC in their new tasks. And we starting very soon in developing a methodology for the assessment of the dossiers, which respects obviously the needs for protecting the human health, but also the need to be able to process probably significant volume of applications that are coming our way. And I think the Commission, obviously I'm not speaking on behalf of the Commission, far from that. I think the Commission will also take a very pragmatic approach to how things need to work out. I do not know anything about resources by industry. I can imagine that there are other people more suitable than me to explain, but it is true, and as I mentioned before, that depending on the situation, an application could be demanding document, a dossier to generate in EUCLID. So please become aware of what the legal text requires. Read the legal text, the third delegate act. We have these links on our website as well. The third delegate act will explain the procedure. The first implementing act will explain the information, the testing that you need to undertake. please start looking into this early enough to understand what your needs are. We're always here to answer any technical questions if you don't understand what is in the legal text when it comes to information requirements for dossiers. The guidance documents will be issued as well. Start early to make this as easy as possible, but be aware that at the beginning of 2027, it's likely for us to receive a significant volume of applications. And I think there's a question coming up. I saw on the slide list how this is going to work. In 2027, there will be applications that need to respect the expiry dates of the end of 2028, and potentially there will be applications for any substances that are missing from the positive list. So if you want to be successful in this, please start early, and we will help you along the way.
Thank you, Panos. Okay. So we have 5 more minutes left of the Q&A. We should be able to do another one, possibly 2 more questions. The next one is asking, are there any third-party test labs approved yet to conduct the testing? And if so, who are they?
I will take this. We do not know, but it's a very good question. And I think we do need to have some collaboration with notified bodies as well, for us as well to have more clarity, because I'm not able to provide a list right now to tell you that there are 2 or 3 or 5 labs or wherever they are, and probably that would help potential applicants. I think we need to do a bit more to try to create visibility. Again, as a very quick, easy suggestion is to go to relevant authorities in member states. I'm sure they will have better visibility than us at this point, but it's something that we will also be looking into to try to provide this service, at least to have some clarity. We also need to be careful. We may not be able to provide the full list. We also need to have an equal treatment. We cannot promote, in inverted commas, one lab over the other. But we do appreciate that this is something that we need more visibility for potential applicants.
Thank you once again. Let's see how we go. This may be the last question. According to Recital 8 of 2024/369, ECHA will collect all applications for the same substance and try processing them in an efficient manner by grouping them. Can this sufficiently ensure the minimalization of animal testing? Could you elaborate on this point and clarify it in a guidance document?
Can take this one, Heidi.
Thank you, Nicholas. Yes.
So first, for everyone to explain what the question referred to. So the recital 8 refers to a step in the procedure where once the application has been submitted and had passed a columns check, so ECHA has assessed the application and considered it has all necessary and sufficient information, ECHA and RAC can group certain applications that are similar and will be more efficiently addressed together. So they could have, for example, the same impurities, or they could be using a similar read-across approach for toxicology. But this grouping approach, I don't think will have any impact on animal testing, because already at that stage, the application has been done, and normally all the testing, animal testing, been done before. So the grouping itself, after all these steps, will not have direct impact. But on the other hand, what can have an impact is some other provisions from the legal act. There is first the obligation for the applicant to minimize to avoid unnecessary animal testing, and to minimize if it cannot be avoided. If someone wants to have more information, it's point 1.2 of section 2 of Annex 5 of decision 365, 2024. A second element to avoid unnecessary animal testing is in process itself. It is the notification of intention. The sooner this notification of intention is submitted to ECHA, the easier it will be for all companies to group together their efforts and hopefully to avoid unnecessary animal testing. So rather than having each company having multiple animal testing for their own application, there will be only one set of animal testing for all applicants joining their efforts together. So these are the most important tools to avoid animal testing.
Thank you so much, Nicolas. We have 1 minute left. We'll take this very last one, and it asks, currently only biocides for product type 6 in can preservation are mentioned in the positive list. Are there plans to introduce a similar requirement for biocides in food contact materials in order to allow authorized substances of product type 4 in the positive list? Panos, would this be?
I can take this. We do not know of any plans. We do know, and probably many participants know, that the food contact materials legislation is subject to revision. The timeline for this is not clear. Yeah, I think that's the simple answer. We don't have any clarity on potential alignment. An alignment would obviously help. That's undoubted. But nothing you can further say at this stage.
Thank you, Panos. Okay, we've run out of time. That concludes today's Q&A session. Thank you to all of the panelists and also to all of you participants for submitting your questions. We look forward to seeing you next time in the next webinar. So bye for now.